Greetings all. Warm Advent blessings in this third week on Tuesday. My dear sisters and brothers, my dear friends, this is your Pastor Yeti. Today I'm going to talk about the healing of the paralytic from Matthew 9 verses 1 to 8. Jesus got into the boat and crossed back over to his own town. Some people brought to him a paralyzed man laying on a bed. When Jesus saw their fate, he said to the paralyzed man, "Cheer up, my son, your sins are forgiven." This follows blaspheming, said some of the scribes to themselves. Jesus read their thoughts. "Why let all these wickedness fester in your hearts?" he said. "Which is easier, to say your sins are forgiven, or to say, get up and walk? But to let you know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins," he spoke to the paralyzed man. "Get up, pick up your bed, and go home." And he got up and went away to his home. When the crowds saw it, they were frightened and praised God for giving authority like this to humans. Authority has had a bad press in much of the world for 100 years and more now. It goes together in the popular mind with nasty ideas like repression, human rights abuses, and such like. Think of the authorities and what do you see? Police officers, perhaps judges, looking stern and solemn, and ready to send you to prison. Faceless civil servants and bureaucrats making laws and regulations which seems designed to make life difficult for ordinary people like you. In some countries, the authorities mean something worse still. It means people will knock on your door at 5 o'clock in the morning, take you away with no good reason, beat you up and maybe kill you. It means people who pass oppressive laws that force you to leave your family for half of the year if you want to find any work, or that prevent you from leaving your own town to find work in the next one, because a new border has just been drawn across the map of your own country. The authorities are people who seem to be able to run things the way they want, but are answerable to nobody. What authority really means in all these cases, of course, is people who have the power to do what they want. This usually means people who have an army to back them up. Authority means power, which means force, which means violence. No wonder we're suspicious of the very word authority itself. Yet hear this again in the gospel story. Jesus has authority. You can't miss it. Authority in his teaching. Authority over diseases at a distance. Authority over the storm, over the demons. Now, authority to do what normally only God does. To put away sins. To change a person's life from the inside out. To free him from whatever was gripping him so tightly that he couldn't move. What is this authority? Is it anything like the authorities we know in our world? Supposing there was a different kind of authority, supposing there was a different kind of power, a power that didn't work by having an army at its back and talks to back down your door at 5 in the morning. A force that had nothing to do with violence and everything to do with the strange compelling power of freedoms and love. Let's have some of that, you say. Well, that's what's on offer in the gospel. That's why Jesus' actions were so astonishingly effective, so much so that the people with a little bit of power of their own in his world, were angry and upset. That's why Matthew is taking 2 whole chapters right now to tell us, in one story after another, that this is precisely the sort of authority that Jesus has. And that's why we need to pay special attention at this point. This is the sort of authority we could all do with. At the heart of this story is Jesus' claim to forgive sins. To put away, as the Jews often said. The word forgive here literally means send away, sending all one's sins off into the far beyond where they are forgotten forever. That it seems in what we needed in this case. In most of Jesus' healings, this wasn't the issue. But it certainly was here. A glance of the paralyzed man on a stretcher told Jesus all he needed to know. This paralyzed was the sort where what we would call psychological forces had reduced the body to immovability. The man had done something, perhaps many things, of which he was deeply ashamed. He was in over his head, as we say, and saw now no way out. He not only felt guilty, he was guilty, and he knew it. And gradually this gnawing sense of guilt stopped him doing things. Then it stopped him moving his body altogether. And finally his friends took their fate and their friend in their own hands and brought him to Jesus. Once again, faith here means faith in Jesus' authority. Faith that Jesus will be able to do something about it. That's what Jesus is responding to. He addresses the key problem. Knowing that all the symptoms will quickly disappear if the main disease is dealt with. Jesus has no straightforwardly physical means of healing the man. He uses the authority which God has invested in him. Authority to forgive sins and so to bring new life. He is already acting as the Son of Man, the one who is to be enthroned over all the forces of evil. He is the right, even in the present, to declare that sin is a beaten fool and to send it away. Already in the story we can see looming up ahead and inviting us forward to the climax of the book. The shape of Jesus' whole ministry. He has come as the Son of Man, the Messiah, Israel's representative. And he has come not just to deal with the oppression caused by Rome, but to address the deeper and darker oppression caused by evil itself. Beyond that, again, he has come to challenge evil's ultimate results, which is not just paralysis, but death itself. That's why in this story, the language used 3 times over for what Jesus tells the paralyzed man to do would remind Matthew's readers of language they would use to hearing in connection with Jesus' resurrection. Get up, he says. And the man got up, arose. When sin is dealt with, resurrection, at whatever level, can't be far behind. We can also see embedded in this story some of the forces that put Jesus on the cross, and thus unwittingly contributed to his decisive victory of sin. Those who objected to his dramatic and authoritative announcements that the man's sins were put away were no doubt reckoning that this was something only God himself could do. God's normal way of doing it was through the temple system, through the established and authorized that word again, priesthood. What they hadn't bargained for was that God would, when the great moment came, delegated this role to one like a son of man, through whom authority of the right sort would now be let loose in the world. But the forces of resistance, the forces that see their own power undermined by God's new sort of power, remain angry and obdurated. We shall see in this chapter how they begin to snipe it at him and attack him, a process which will grow and swell until Jesus eventually stands before the high priest himself and makes, for the last time, a great statement about the authority of the Son of Man. And after that, all that is left is his death, through which all sins were dealt with, and his own getting up, the sign, as in this story, that God was indeed with him and had given him his own special type of authority to heal and restore the world. Now, in what can we reflect on this whole story about authority? What does this passage teach us about authority? And how, in what way is Jesus victorious over the forces of evil? Our God was indeed with him and had given him his own special type of authority to heal and restore the world. This is your Pastor Yeti.